Valley. You know what it is.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the finale of the Puck Pass divisional preview. We've covered all of the NHL except for the Central Division, everyone's favorite division, best division in hockey. As always, I'm your host, KJ, joined by the wonderful banana shirt wearing, Predators hat wearing Zach Mack. How are you doing today, bud?
I'm doing good, man. I'm glad you mentioned my shirt. This division is bananas, so that is why I put it on for this one.
I wanted to provide you the opportunity to make that joke again. Dude, this division's wild. I love this division. Obviously, because I'm a Blackhawks fan, but this is such a fun division.
It is, and I feel like, honestly, and I know we haven't talked about this one at all leading up to this, so I have a feeling that we might be somewhat aligned here, but maybe not. I don't know.
I don't think so. I honestly, I made my rankings, and it's tough. It's tough. If you guys haven't watched part 1, 2, and 3, go check those out. We did some really cool stuff with the Metro, Atlantic, and Pacific. We actually got some good feedback on that. Red Wings fans still hate me. And Toronto fans surprisingly don't think they're going to finish ahead of Boston. That was weird to me.
Really?
Like, a lot of people think like they're going to do their thing they always do and just finish in third. So hopefully we're right about that, because I really want to see Toronto with home ice advantage, but we'll see. Any pre-show notes on the Central Division before we jump into this?
No, other than, top to bottom, I think it's the tightest division, but you kind of already touched on that. It's the most exciting one in hockey. There's a lot of slots that are up for grabs, so I'm really, it was fun to make my predictions, but I'm also really interested to hear what you got. So
yeah, I think we're going to agree on number 8. I'll jump right into it. I've got Minnesota.
7.
Or 7, sorry, 7. 7, you're right. I don't have them numbered. I just had the bottoms. Yeah.
Okay.
Number 7 is Minnesota. They don't really do anything for me. Parise Suter, they're on the back end of their career. A lot of money tied up in the guys that aren't going to do much. Defensively, they're pretty good. Offensively, I think they're pretty lackluster, and I don't see them making a whole lot of noise this year.
Yeah, I agree. I got the Wild in the 7th spot. I've actually got them winning less games than they did last year. It's such a competitive division, and they didn't do nearly as much as the rest of the teams did in the offseason. And like you mentioned, Parise, Stahl, Zucker, there's not really much going on. They added Zuccarello, but
and they'll get Dumba back, which will be nice, but not enough to really push in this division.
Yeah, so I've far and away, I don't think that I have any issue putting them at the bottom.
They're the only disappointing team in this division, honestly.
Yeah, agreed.
Which sucks coming from the state of hockey, and they'll get back to it eventually. But it's not like they make any noise in the playoffs when they get there. But they're going to be far, far, far away from the playoffs this year. Who do you have at number 6?
So yeah, this is probably where it starts to shake up. I've got the Stars at 6, and I know you're probably not going to like to hear that. But,
okay. Not even from a fan point, but that does shock me.
I do got them at 88 points, though. So they put up 93 last year, so it's really only 5 less points. But in a division that is this tight, somebody had to be down here. I've got Sagan down as their best player. They got Pavelski, but with how strong – I don't want to give away any of their teams, but in my opinion, with how strong the rest of the division got, I had to put someone at 6. It's Dallas.
Wow, that really does shock me. I think Dallas got way better this offseason. Winnipeg is my number 6.
Wow.
They're falling apart. It doesn't even seem like that locker room likes each other. Blake Wheeler's far and away their best player. But after pretty disappointing first round of the playoffs, Laine doesn't even seem like he wants to be there anymore. Hellbuck, who knows? It looked like the sky was the limit for him, and now I'm not totally sold on him, which bothers me because he's a hometown kid, grew up down the street from where I grew up. But Winnipeg is going to be – that's not even the biggest surprise on my list. But Winnipeg's I think they're going to be a pretty disappointing team. They're still going to score goals. They're still going to do what they do, but I think they're going to lose a lot of 5-3 games this year. I just don't see them being – especially with this division, I just don't see them being able to compete. And they don't have guys who – handle adversity all that well either. So because a lot of them haven't seen much of it the last couple years. So
it's a good point.
I can see them falling pretty far, and I don't love Winnipeg, and I usually do. Big Patrick Laine fan, my name on shell is Hatrick Line. Like that's the way I do it, but I can't back this Winnipeg team this year.
Interesting. Who you got at 5?
I think might be where people turn the video off. I have your defending Stanley Cup champion St. Louis Blues at number 5.
Okay.
Jordan Binnington is going to win 3 Vezinas in his career. The furthest he'll ever be from a Vezina is this year. Just that second year swing, a lot of Stanley Cup hangover. There's no like real stat or anything that I can give you as to why they're going to fall down that far. I just don't see them repeat. I remember they did win the Stanley Cup, but I don't know if you heard, they were last in the league on January 3rd. I don't know if you heard that. Yes, they ended up being the best team in the league as far as winning the Cup, but still a few question marks with this team. They weren't the perfect, destiny team. And I see Binnington taking a step back because it's what happens to second-year goalies, not because he's a bad goalie. That's why I have them down at 5.
Interesting. There's actually quite a few hot takes in that ramble right there. I'm trying to keep track of them all. I'll go into my 5. I'll rebuttal when I come across the Blues. I've got the Blackhawks at 5. I've got them at 90 points. Obviously, they're on their way up. They got Lehner. That's you mentioned it earlier. If nothing else, it opens the door for Crawford to leave later on, but it's still a solid goalie that they've got. I've got Patrick Kane down as their best player. I don't even think I had to say that, but the reason I have them at 5 and not higher, because I do honestly think that they could be higher, and it's because I think with the way that Chicago's defense is getting older, and they're certainly not like Boston Bruins old or Detroit Red Wings bad on defense, but they're somewhere between where they want to be and those places. So I think Lehner gets a little more action, whether it's Lehner or Crawford. So I don't think that his numbers will be as good as they were last year. And I wanted to put them higher, but I've got Chicago at 5.
See, I'm really not because that effectively puts them out of the playoffs at 5 in this division because of the way we were talking about the Pacific. But I'm not going to fight you on it because I have them at 4. I'll jump right up to my number 4. I mean, you know me. I was looking for every single reason to put them higher, but to hold on to just a little bit of journalistic integrity, I kept them at 4. But for a lot of the same reasons you said, their defense isn't great. They added pieces. I mean, Dejan and Mata. I mean, Mata's taken a huge step back in the last couple of years, but it's still a serviceable defense. Corey Crawford not having to play as much and having less of the starting burden on him with Lehner in, I think is a huge deal. I mean, they have at least 2 40-goal scorers on the team with Patrick Kane and Alex DeBrincat. I mean, Patrick Kane's obviously their best player, but there's a lot more to be excited about for Blackhawks fans and for anyone that just likes the competitiveness of this division. I think the Blackhawks are going to provide more, and I know it's me saying it, but I think they're going to provide more as far as high analytics. I don't even know the right word, but like they're just going to show that they're better when everyone's there, and especially the moves they made, as opposed to last year where like there were times where I was like, are they going to make a push? Oh, they lose 3 in a row. Like I don't think we're going to get that, but they're also not going to win. They're not going to go on 10-game win streaks either. So I won't fight you at 5 because I have them at 4. But I do think that people are mistaken if they think that they're a cellar dweller this year because they were bad last year.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you because I'm not necessarily a Blackhawks fan, but on paper they look like you mentioned, Kane and DeBrincat. You could throw 35 plus 40 goals next to their names, and all of a sudden. So my question to you is, will you have them at 4? Are they a playoff team? And B, if they are a playoff team, if I'm looking at them on paper, the only question mark I have is their depth. Is that something you're worried about?
I have them in the playoffs. I'm worried about their depth today. I'm not sure what we're gonna get out of like Strome and Nylander and like a lot of the guys they moved for.
That's fair.
And I think losing Anisimov is someone in the locker room that you do need as far as adversity and depth. But I think they've got the right guys. I mean, Jonathan Taves is Captain Serious, but he's been one of the best captains of this era, really. And I think he'll be able to get guys in line. Whether or not they have the skill to follow suit concerns me. But as far as getting guys on the ice, I think they're going to be okay. But I do have them in a playoff spot, the 8th seed, but playoffs nonetheless.
Okay. I'll move on to my number 4 then. I've got the Predators at 4. They won the division last year by a point, edging out the Jets and the Blues, who both had 99. Preds had 100. Dropping them down to 95 points. Obviously, they added Duchesne, who I think is probably their best player. And I honestly think that it's probably the best place for Duchesne since he's been in Ottawa. I think he'll do better in Nashville than he did in Ottawa and Columbus.
Okay.
And Nashville made some questionable decisions, and I know it doesn't make any immediate impacts. We talked about Sissons a little bit on, I think it was the last episode.
Yeah.
So you kind of wonder what's going on there. But they've got Pecorine. I think that I've got him top 4. Obviously, I got him number 4, and I've got him in the playoffs. But I labeled them a pretender last year. They proved me right. I don't see them being in the top 3 in this division. And obviously, I think you haven't said them yet, so you probably do have them somewhere up there.
Yeah, I'll jump right into it and kind of play off your points. I have them at 3.
Okay.
Only because it was one of those like protecting myself type things. Like
Sure.
There's a case for them to be below the Blackhawks because of Pecorine's inconsistency, and as he gets older, that's only going to be a bigger problem with each month that passes. They're going to make the playoffs coming out of this division, and they probably won't play more than 5 playoff games again. Like, I just don't think they're a very good team top to bottom. Matt Duchene's a big addition. I still have Philip Forsberg as their best player.
Okay.
He can really do it all, and I think he's got the right mentality on the ice. Duchene can quit on a team. We've seen it.
Sure.
And Nashville can hit rough patches. So I'll be interested to see how Duchene can handle that. Roman Jossi's a great leader for that team, but Pecorine, I think since he's won a Vezina, he's been fraudulent. Like, I just don't think and especially in the playoffs, I don't think he's a good playoff goalie. And I think we're going to start seeing more of his playoff type play in the regular season as things start to fall. And he doesn't have PK Subban on the blue line anymore, so that'll be interesting to see. He wasn't, Norris potential when he was with Nashville, but he was good. So I think they'll miss that. But top 4, top 3, with where I have St. Louis, you can't really put Nashville any lower. But I don't think they're much of a threat to the other teams in this division.
Yeah, that's a good point because I mentioned before when on air that I had some trouble flip-flopping teams leading up to this today, and the Predators and Blackhawks I probably flip-flopped 3 or 4 times. So
see, I could flip Nashville and St. Louis right now and it wouldn't change my mentality about the division because it really comes down to how I feel about each team's goaltender. But I'm a little more confident in a team that might have a few more guys that could play consistently as opposed to a team that played really, really well and way better than everyone else for a few months.
Okay, yeah, I'll play off that. Then I'll go right into number 3. I've got the St. Louis Blues. I've got them finishing with this 99 points, just like they did last year. Obviously, I think they take a far different route to get to those 99 points. Tarasenko's their best player, but honestly, I was making this and I wanted them lower initially because how many teams got better in this division. But every time I came back to them, I couldn't convince myself any reason why they would change their success. Obviously, like you said, what happens to second-year goalies is they just don't perform as well as they did in the first year if they had an outstanding year. So there's that to worry about with Binnington. And there's going to be a target on their back, which was the main reason I really didn't have them at 1 or 2. Is because people are just going to want to beat the Blues. But I could see dropping them if they had made the comeback from January 1st to the playoffs, made it through a couple rounds, and then got bounced. But to win the Stanley Cup, it's there can be some complacency there, sure. But I think Craig Berube knows what he's doing, and that's why I've got him getting back in the playoffs.
So with St. Louis, I didn't mention it. I have Ryan O'Reilly as their best player right now.
Yeah.
I think in your scenario, though, with them being a top 3 team in this division, Tarasenko has to be their best player.
Yeah.
If that makes if Ryan O'Reilly's their best player this season, I don't think they're a playoff team. But I like what you're saying about Tarasenko. If he's back to cover of NHL Tarasenko, then they're a very, very good team for the entire season. No, that's a good point. I mean, like I said, I could swap my Nashville and St. Louis picks, but just kind of where they fell. I'm going to jump into my number 2 because I think we're about to go at it a little bit because I haven't mentioned them yet, and you had them so low. It's the Dallas Stars. It's really shocking to you. I've never wanted to like yell at you over all the podcasts we've really done and everything, but like all they did was like add Joe Pavelski and kind of build on what ended up being a really good team last year that really only lost to the Stanley Cup champs. So they don't have to feel as bad about that. I mean, Tyler Seguin's going to be a Hart Trophy candidate this year. Like, they're going to be a high-flying team. Now, is Ben Bishop going to do what he did last year? Probably not. I mean, that was crazy numbers, especially in the back half of the season. But you're one of the first people I've seen, like, and I don't, dive into too many people's rankings, but one-on-one, I haven't seen anybody really say that Dallas is anything less than the top 3 team in this division. They're not gonna. I know we have the same top team, but I won't give it away. They're not gonna fight for the division title because I just don't think they're that good. But they could, at any point, they could go off and win 7-1, or they could win 1-0. Jonathan Klingberg, arguably a Norris candidate. Check out or wait for an article I've got coming out about some awards that might show some of my Stars love, but. And they've got Miro Heiskanen. I'm like rattling off names in my head because I can't imagine having them that low. But they are the Dallas Stars, so I mean they've disappointed in huge ways before. So, but they're my number 2 far and away. There's only 2 teams that I really trust to make the playoffs and run away with it this in this division, and Dallas is one of them.
It's just gonna make it so much better when Dallas fails this season.
Yeah.
Because I think, honestly, they were the benefactor of Colorado slipping last year, I thought. And then Chicago also, I thought, could have been better last year. And the Stars snuck in with 93 points to the 4 seed. So I see where you're coming from. They're young, they're good, they're getting better.
I mean, they snuck in, but then they smacked the shit out of Nashville.
Yeah, but I kind of expected that. It'll be interesting to see because I think I don't know. I have a hard time being like, maybe they could be 2 because I don't think they could be 2. But I don't know. We'll see. That's interesting. I'm going to keep my eye on that. And you alluded to that. I think we have the top number 1, and we don't because I've got Colorado at number 2. I've got them finishing at even 100 points, which is obviously far better than they did last year. They've got the trio. They got Nazem Kadri in there for some role players, depth. Yeah. Depth. And that's a lot of what they lacked when they went through their slump last year. I think we're going to be pretty much on the same page with the Avalanche. They got better. They got what they needed. A lot of their success hinges on their goaltender situation, but I think Colorado is an absolute lock for a top 2 spot.
Oh, yeah, hands down. They're a lock for probably the second best team in the league as it stands. Now, they do only have Philip Grubauer on the roster. Yeah. I get that, and I'll just do it. I'll go right into number 1. I've got the Avalanche, obviously. Nathan MacKinnon, best player, one of the best players in the league. Their trio is going to be unstoppable again. Grubauer does make me nervous, but I mean, at this point, who knows who else they're going to have between the pipes? But that is lacking. But other than that, I mean, they're basically a modern day super team. I mean, if this Avs team played last year's Tampa Bay Lightning team in 7 games, they'd only need 4. They're that good. They are that good of a team this year. They're going to win the division by 12 points in my mind. I mean, it's not even going to be close. And I don't really have like any like unfulfilled love for the Avalanche. I just love watching them play. And Nathan MacKinnon, I know you're a big Mac guy. Like they just he brings something to the table that really only, if you look at this division, only Patrick Kane brings to the table what Nathan MacKinnon does. I think that's why the Avs are far and away my favorite for this division. But I'm really, really interested to hear your number 1 right now. I know who it is, but I'm really interested to hear the points.
Yeah, so I was going to say, I've got the Winnipeg Jets at number 1. I've got them at 105 points, which is 3 wins better than they got last year. I wrote down Laine, and I know there's a lot of question marks around whether he wants to be there, whether he's committed to Winnipeg, but he's going to score more goals than he did last year. I think hands down he will. I've got Wheeler down as their best player, but Mark Scheifele is their most important player. If
I like that.
If Laine can score more goals and Scheifele can be, more of a goal scorer. He had 38 goals, but I think if he can get somewhere like 42, and I think he's capable of doing it and up, I think the Jets could be scary. I think they're big enough to compete, but they're also fast enough to where they're not so big that they're slow.
No, I can see that for sure.
And I know you're a little iffy about Hellebuck, and I am too, but I just don't see. Really, I don't see how the Jets let this division slip from them.
Oh well, I'll give you 7 reasons right now.
Okay.
In my mind, I'm not telling you that you're like an idiot for thinking this. I'm thinking you're an idiot, but I won't tell you that. Nathan Bolio, Anthony Potato, Dustin Bufflin, Dmitry Kulikov, Josh Morrissey, Sami Niku, and Neil Pionk. For the listeners who think I was speaking Russian or anything, that's the Jets' defensive core. That's the biggest question mark for me. And like I said, there's a lot of things wrong with this team. I wouldn't fault you if you had him at 4, but the hardest disagree we've ever had is Winnipeg winning this division. I can't see it. I see what you're saying, and if those things come together, they'll be very good. I still don't think they're better than the Avalanche. I just don't see those things coming together. That's a lot of stuff everything kind of came together 2 years ago for them with like all of that stuff. And team is obviously structured a lot differently back then, but it was still Laine, Scheifele, Wheeler. That's who it had to be. I think Trouba is more important to this team than people give him credit for. I like that analysis. I think it's really, it's a lot of really good points. To me, it's just there's no way that all comes together. But that's why we do this, because we're just going to sit here and watch and tweet at each other about how stupid each other is. So,
what happened to the Jets in the playoffs last year? They got bounced the first round by
St. Louis.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah,
I was trying to look it
it's
up.
like in 5, I want to say. But there was not there was no Patrick Laine. Binnington was, he was there, but he wasn't playing well. And Binnington was doing what he was doing. So I can't fault them for last year. But going into this year, it does seem bleak, especially with the rest of the division. But now that I've hyped up Chicago so much, they'll shit the bed, and that'll move everyone up a spot. So that'll be great.
That would make me happy for reasons not.
You've got a Red Wings hat hanging up in the back and a Predators hat on. I wonder why you wouldn't want the Blackhawks to do well. Any last points on this division though? Because it's gonna be a fun season.
Yeah, this is. Other than I'm gonna close with how I opened and say that this is the tightest division. Obviously, our predictions are there's quite a bit of parity, other than the Wild at number 7, which is ironic because this division is wild. But yeah, this is gonna be. Oh man, I'm gonna be if there are 2 teams in this division playing on a given night, I promise you it's a game I'll be watching. I promise you.
Absolutely. I'll put you on the spot right now. Does the Stanley Cup winner come from this division?
Yes.
I won't make you give it away.
Okay.
Unless you want to.
I was gonna say the Avalanche.
Okay, that's fair. I say no unless it's the Blackhawks. Then obviously I'm all on board. But I do think the Blackhawks are gonna be playing the Knights in the first round, so not great.
I think it's gonna be Avalanche Knights in the conference finals.
That would be a lot of fun. I wish the Knights were the team moving to the Central, honestly. Because the Coyotes are going to be moving in a year. But if it was the Knights, that'd be so fun. But this is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have a great season. This was a ton of fun. I love this little series we did.
Yeah.
We got to, give us suggestions. We can break things down into 4 episodes, 3, 10 if you want it. My wife wouldn't love that, but I'd love to spend a little more time with Zach. But we're having a great time. She's grunting at me. There's tons of content to be had. Go check out the Twitter at PuckPuckPassPod, at BellyUpKJ, at BellyUpZachMac. Any last words on this whole series? Just the whole series.
No, I'm gonna close it out with a shout out my man Dylan Larkin. 71 days until puck drop. I don't know if that's for the Red Wings opening or
that's for the Red Wings. Okay. It's like 68 for like the first game.
Okay, so shout out somebody number 68. That's all I'm saying.
Mark Stone, I think.
That'll still maybe that'll work.
He was at one point. That works. Hey, for Zach Mack, I'm KJ. Thank you guys so much for joining us over these 4 episodes. We will see you next time. Have a great night.
Valley. You know what it is.